The 1980s were dominated by Star Wars clones and alien horrors, but hidden beneath the blockbusters were strange, obscure, and forgotten space films that vanished into VHS dust. This countdown unearths 15 space movies from the 1980s you've probably never seen. They're wild, weird, and sometimes brilliant. Let's launch into the unknown corners of retro sci-fi cinema. Number 15, Star Crash, 1980. Before The Empire Strikes Back cemented the sci-fi blockbuster template, Italy had already fired its own laser cannon into space with Star Crash, a delirious low-budget spectacle from director Luigi Cozzi. The film is a chaotic collage of glittering star fields, flamboyant costumes, and outrageous dialogue. It's a shameless Star Wars knockoff, but it's also dripping with charm and cosmic kitsch. The plot follows Stella Star, a leather-clad smuggler played by cult actress Caroline Munro, as she and her robotic sidekick navigate galactic dangers to save the universe. Along the way, they're joined by a glowing alien, a telepathic cop, and even David Hasselhoff wielding a lightsaber. The film's special effects are audaciously cheap but strangely hypnotic. Explosions are animated in colored streaks, miniatures wobble in low gravity, and the music by John Barry somehow elevates the entire madness. Star Crash was barely released in the United States and got little critical love, but over the years it's been embraced as a camp classic. It doesn't care about logic, it cares about fun. It's like someone tried to film a child's toy box imagination on a shoestring budget and succeeded. For fans of outsider sci-fi, this is essential viewing. Number 14, Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, 1983. Released in the early 3D craze of the 80s, Space Hunter promised pulpy thrills in 3 dimensions and delivered a curious hybrid of space opera and post-apocalyptic grit. The story follows intergalactic bounty hunter Wolf, who crash lands on a ruined planet ruled by the grotesque cyborg Overdog. Alongside him is a teenage scavenger played by Molly Ringwald in one of her earliest roles. This was no prestige sci-fi. It was a matinee romp made to fill multiplexes, but it's surprisingly atmospheric. The sets are dusty and dangerous. The creatures feel tangible and grotesque. The Overdog himself is nightmare fuel with metal claws and a growling mechanical voice. The 3D effects were gimmicky at the time, but now add to its retro weirdness. Produced by Ivan Reitman just before Ghostbusters, this film got lost between blockbuster giants, but it has a cult heartbeat. Its mix of Mad Max grit and laser-firing heroics feels like a relic from a wilder dimension of 80s cinema. If you miss the days when sci-fi was dirty, messy, and full of mutant surprises, this one's a forgotten jewel. Number 13, Moontrap, 1989. When Moontrap was released in 1989, it promised a return to cerebral space horror. What it delivered was something far stranger and more ambitious than its budget could handle. Starring Walter Koenig from Star Trek and Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, this low-budget gem tells of astronauts who discover ancient alien technology hidden beneath the moon's surface. Technology that's very much alive. What makes Moontrap unique is its atmosphere. It feels like a mix of 2001, A Space Odyssey, and The Terminator. The moon base sequences are stark, eerie, and claustrophobic. The aliens are mechanical parasites that reassemble themselves using human corpses. The film's lore dives into theories of ancient spacefaring civilizations that predate humanity. It's pulpy, but weirdly intelligent in places. The effects are practical and gritty. Stop-motion cyborg monsters lurch through metallic corridors. The tone shifts from exploratory to apocalyptic. And yet, despite its flaws, Moontrap lingers. It feels like something you saw at midnight on cable and were never quite sure existed. It flopped financially and vanished for years. But in the world of lost 80s sci-fi, it stands as one of the boldest failures. It aimed for the moon, literally, and even though it crashed, it left a crater worth rediscovering. Number 12, The Black Hole, 1980. Before Disney owned intergalactic empires, it dared to drift into darkness with The Black Hole. Released just after Star Wars reshaped science fiction, The Black Hole was the Mouse House's strange, moody answer to the space craze. But instead of swashbuckling action, it gave audiences a slow, brooding, and philosophical journey into cosmic oblivion. Set aboard a spaceship that encounters a derelict vessel hovering at the edge of a black hole, the film becomes a gothic mystery in zero gravity. The mad scientist aboard has built a robot army and claims to be studying the singularity. But his real secrets are far more disturbing. The tone is eerie and existential. There are murder droids floating through sterile corridors. There's talk of God time and the meaning of death. The film's score by John Barry is haunting. The production design is stunning, all mechanical catwalks and glowing control rooms, but the ending, a surreal vision of heaven and hell, confused audiences and critics alike. The movie failed to become the blockbuster Disney wanted. It was too weird, too slow, and too grim. But time has been kind to the black hole. Today it's seen as a bold experiment, a haunted house in space, a sci-fi horror for kids that pulls no punches. In the age of safe studio formulas, this flawed, forgotten vision deserves another look. Number 11, Slipstream, 1989. With Slipstream, Mark Hamill went from Jedi Knight to futuristic bounty hunter in a wind-swept apocalypse. The film takes place after climate collapse, where jet streams of raging wind dominate the planet's surface. Humanity survives in scattered pockets along the Slipstream, a powerful air current that functions like a natural highway through the ruined world. Hamill plays Tasker, a hardened enforcer chasing a fugitive android with a mysterious past. Bill Paxton plays a rogue pilot caught in the chase, and the pair soar through canyons and deserts in sleek gliders. There are tribes of sky worshippers, remnants of artificial intelligence, and a tone that mixes mysticism with decay. It's not really a space movie in the traditional sense, but it belongs in the same forgotten corner of ambitious, low-budget 80s sci-fi. Directed by Steven Lisberger, the man behind Tron, the film was plagued by budget cuts and poor distribution. Audiences were confused by its slow pace and philosophical edge. The action scenes are brief, the world building is dense, and the whole movie feels like a strange dream about humanity's failure to evolve. But visually, it's arresting. The gliders slicing through sandstone valleys, the soundtrack echoing with ghostly synth. Hamill's performance is cold and fierce, unlike anything else he's done. Slipstream flopped hard. But if you're looking for a buried artifact from the post-Star Wars wasteland, it's worth the ride. Number 10, The Deadly Spawn, 1983. It begins in a crater. It ends in gore. The Deadly Spawn may be a micro-budget alien invasion flick, but it plays like a love letter to both classic sci-fi and extreme horror. When a meteor crashes near a family home, it unleashes a mass of worm-like alien creatures that feed on flesh and reproduce explosively. The carnage that follows is relentless. Shot on weekends by amateur filmmakers using friends' basements and handmade puppets. The Deadly Spawn was never meant to hit theaters, but its grotesque monster design and unflinching violence made it an underground sensation. The aliens have gaping maws filled with rows of teeth, and they swarm in squirming packs. Victims are torn apart in gruesome detail, and yet at its heart, the film has real admiration for classic genre films. The hero is a sci-fi obsessed teen who realizes his movie knowledge might be the only thing that saves them. That meta-twist makes it more than just gore. It's about fandom facing real terror. It's a monster movie made by monster movie lovers. Though technically set on Earth, its alien origins and claustrophobic invasion plot make it a spiritual cousin to other space horrors of the decade. For those who appreciate practical effects over polish, this is a grotesque gem that proves sometimes the smallest films have the biggest teeth. Number 9, Enemy Mine, 1985. On paper, Enemy Mine seemed like a sure thing. Directed by Wolfgang Peterson and starring Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr., it told the story of a human pilot and an alien soldier stranded on a hostile planet who must survive together. It had war space battles and an alien birth scene. But what the trailers didn't show was that this was really a deeply emotional sci-fi fable about empathy, identity, and the tragedy of conflict. Quaid plays Willis Davidge, a fighter pilot who crashes on a volcanic world while battling a reptilian alien species known as the Drax. But when he finds himself face-to-face with a stranded Drac played by Gossett, the film swerves into unexpected emotional territory. The two enemies are forced into cooperation and eventually form a profound bond that defies species. Visually, the film is stark and beautiful. The landscapes are vast and deadly. The alien makeup is incredible. Gossett disappears into the role of Jereba. The soundtrack underscores the loneliness and beauty of their interspecies friendship, and the final act introduces a deeply moving twist that elevates the film to something mythic. Enemy Mine was a financial disaster. It suffered from reshoot studio panic and bad marketing, but over the years, it has been reclaimed by fans who see it as one of the most heartfelt sci-fi stories of the 80s. Not about war, about understanding, a message more vital than ever. Number 8, Saturn III, 1980. Kirk Douglas Farrah Fawcett and a psychotic killer robot. Saturn III had all the ingredients for sci-fi success, but what it became was a surreal, strange, and often uncomfortable film that defied every expectation. Set in a research station orbiting Saturn, the movie focuses on two lovers living in isolation, whose peace is shattered when a deranged scientist arrives with an experimental robot named Hector. The robot isn't just malfunctioning, it's absorbing the scientist's twisted mind and becoming obsessed with Fawcett's character. What begins as a sleek sci-fi setup turns into a psychological horror chamber piece. The sets are sleek and oppressive, the lighting is stark, and the performances veer between theatrical and raw. Behind the scenes, the production was a nightmare. Original director John Barry was fired early on, Stanley Donen took over, script rewrites raged, Fawcett was uncomfortable, Douglas clashed with everyone. The result is a film that feels fractured yet fascinating. Saturn III was quickly buried by better space films, but over time it's developed a cult following. It's erotic, violent, philosophical, and deeply weird. The robot design is still chilling, and its tone, lonely, sexual, and paranoid, feels more daring than most mainstream science fiction of its time. A disaster worth rediscovering. Number 7, Galaxy of Terror, 1981. Produced by Roger Corman and boasting early production design by James Cameron, Galaxy of Terror is a psychedelic plunge into the subconscious fears of its doomed crew. Ostensibly a horror version of Alien, the film follows a rescue team to a desolate planet where an alien pyramid forces each character to face their worst nightmares, literally killing them with their own fears. The sets are bold, red-lit corridors filled with pulsating walls and bizarre structures. The deaths are gruesome, surreal, and unapologetically shocking. One character is eaten by giant worms. Another melts into nothingness. The infamous scene involving a monstrous maggot and a female crew member caused censorship storms that still echo today. The story itself is thin, but the atmosphere is thick with dread and madness. Cameron's early influence can be seen in the lighting tricks, the mechanical effects, and the alien designs. The film's low budget is often obvious, but it never stops swinging for the stars. Banned in some countries and dismissed by critics, Galaxy of Terror became a VHS legend. It is grotesque and brilliant in equal measure. It belongs to the dark corners of the galaxy where sanity crumbles and monsters are born from within. A pure 80s space horror trip. Number 6, Life Force, 1985. Directed by Tobe Hooper and written by alien scribe Dan O'Bannon, Life Force was supposed to be the next big sci-fi horror hit. Instead, it became one of the strangest genre experiments of the 80s. The setup sounds like pure pulp brilliance. Astronauts bring back a mysterious alien woman from Halley's Comet, only to discover she's a psychic vampire who drains human life force with a kiss. What unfolds is a genre fusion like no other. The film starts as cosmic horror draped in eerie silence, then shifts into full-body zombie chaos through the streets of London. Patrick Stewart shows up possessed. Naked space vampires float through shattered glass. The music by Henry Mancini swells like an opera, and at the center is Matilda May, whose silent performance as the alien seductress is both haunting and mythic. Critics were baffled. The nudity, the tone shifts, the mix of sci-fi, vampire mythology, and Lovecraftian apocalypse made Life Force hard to categorize. Audiences skipped it. Studios re-edited it. But the original cut has since been embraced as a misunderstood masterpiece. It's not clean or focused, but it's bold, grand, and cosmic in its ambition. Life Force doesn't just visit space. It tears down the soul of humanity and burns London to the ground. That's a journey worth watching. Number 5, The Ice Pirates, 1984. If Star Wars had a hangover, it might look something like The Ice Pirates. This bawdy sci-fi comedy imagines a future where water is the most precious resource in the galaxy and pirates raid frozen cargo to survive. Starring Robert Urich, Mary Crosby, and a pre-Sex and the City Ron Perlman, the film mixes slapstick humor with space opera absurdity. The tone is chaotic. Space fights are interrupted by malfunctioning robots. Swashbuckling sword duels break out on alien spaceships. There's a castration machine, a time warp chase, and a space herpes subplot that no one saw coming. The sets are all plastic pipes and blinking lights. The effects are cheap, but the energy is relentless. The film flopped hard when it hit theaters. It was marketed as a kid-friendly space adventure, but the humor was adult, the pacing manic, and the tone completely off the rails. But on VHS and late-night cable, it became a cult object, a reminder that science fiction could be irreverent, silly, and completely unhinged. The Ice Pirates is not a great film, but it is a unique one. It captures a moment in the 80s when filmmakers were willing to get weird in space, and audiences who discovered it later still laugh in disbelief. Number 4, Battle Beyond the Stars, 1980. Roger Corman wanted to cash in on Star Wars. What he made instead was Battle Beyond the Stars, a sci-fi retelling of the Magnificent Seven with effects by a young James Cameron and a spaceship shaped like a woman's torso. It was weird, wild, and more ambitious than its budget should have allowed. The plot follows a peaceful planet under threat from an evil warlord who vaporizes entire civilizations. A young farmer sets out to recruit a ragtag group of mercenaries from across the galaxy to defend his world. Each one is stranger than the last. A lizard man, a hive-minded alien, a warrior woman, and a sarcastic smuggler voiced by George Peppard. What stands out is the passion. The models are imaginative. The score by James Horner is stirring, and the script leans into camp and courage in equal measure. It's a space western through and through, but it has a pulpy human heart. The film launched careers and defined what low-budget sci-fi could achieve with vision. It played endlessly on cable and inspired young filmmakers. It may have started as a copycat, but it ended as a cult classic. A film that dared to go beyond the stars with nothing but scrap metal and raw ambition. Number 3, Star Crystal, 1986. Star Crystal starts like a dozen other sci-fi films of the 80s. A space shuttle crash, a handful of survivors, and something alien lurking in the shadows. But by the time the film ends, it has transformed into something so bizarre and so strangely heartfelt that most viewers are left stunned. What begins as alien ends as a philosophical sermon from a creature born of slime. The story follows a group of astronauts stranded in deep space after their ship is sabotaged. They unknowingly bring aboard an alien organism that evolves rapidly, feeding on computers' power systems and eventually the crew. The creature kills brutally at first, but halfway through, the film shifts gears. The alien begins to learn about humanity through digital archives and, shockingly, develops a conscience. The second half is part religious awakening, part cosmic redemption tale. It's like E.T. got spliced with The Thing. The practical effects are gooey and grotesque. The pacing is uneven, the performances are wooden, and yet there's a haunting sincerity in the final scenes where the alien forgives its enemies and floats off in peace. Star Crystal is a train wreck and a treasure. It bombed completely and was buried in bargain bins. But its whiplash tone and weird finale have earned it a cult that loves sci-fi oddities. It is perhaps the strangest alien movie of the decade, and that is saying something. Number 2, Outland, 1981. What if High Noon took place on one of Jupiter's moons? That was the pitch behind Outland, a slow-burn space thriller starring Sean Connery as a lone marshal battling corporate corruption in a remote mining colony. With its retro-futuristic sets, pressure suit shootouts, and brooding intensity, Outland remains one of the most underappreciated gems of the genre. Connery plays William O'Neill, a lawman transferred to Io, where miners are dying under mysterious circumstances. The deeper he digs, the more he uncovers a conspiracy involving powerful drugs, brutal working conditions, and company executives who want everything hushed up. It all builds toward a final confrontation, where O'Neill must face down assassins alone in the dark corridors of the colony. The production design is outstanding, gritty, realistic, and filled with analog switches and steam vents. The film feels more alien than Star Wars, industrial, grimy, and grounded. The special effects by John Steers are sharp, and the score by Jerry Goldsmith adds to the tension. Outland didn't wow audiences in 1981, but critics praised Connery's performance and the film's noir sensibility. Today, it plays like a forgotten blueprint for future sci-fi like The Expanse. It doesn't shout, it simmers, and in that silence, there's real power. Number 1, Deep Space, 1988. By the late 80s, the Alien formula had splintered into dozens of imitators, but Deep Space stands out as one of the most absurd yet oddly satisfying of the bunch. Imagine a low-rent government conspiracy, a rubber suit monster on the loose in Los Angeles, and Charles Napier as a gunslinging detective who has no time for intergalactic nonsense. The plot is delicious pulp. The military loses control of a biological weapon that crashes in an urban neighborhood. What emerges is a hulking alien monster with claws, acid spit, and a taste for human brains. Napier's grizzled cop is called in to investigate. What follows is part creature feature, part buddy cop movie, and part military cover-up conspiracy. The effects are pure 80s gore, practical rubber monsters, tentacles, and blood sprays. The pacing is fast, the dialogue is ridiculous, and yet the film leans so hard into its cliches that it becomes a kind of joy. You know what's coming, but you love it anyway. Deep Space never saw a wide release. It became a cable oddity and a VHS legend. It's the kind of movie you rent by accident and then watch 3 times in disbelief. It may not belong on any best of lists, but in the world of forgotten space horror, it earns its place with guts, tentacles, and a smoking shotgun. The 80s gave us more than just the big-budget space sagas. Hidden in the shadows were these wild, strange, and overlooked galactic misfits. Some bombed, some vanished, but all dared to explore deeper space on a budget of dreams. Seek them out and rediscover the weirder side of the final frontier.